Hi, I'm going to be working on this arborvitae today. This is a tree that my friend and I collected from an old nursery that had gone out of business. We were able to rescue somewhere around 100 trees, and the next week, nursery got bulldozed. So yeah, that was pretty good. This particular one was actually in a nursery pot, maybe a 1-gallon nursery pot. So all of this root mass was inside the pot, and the tree had actually fallen over. It was on its side where we found it. My buddy has a pretty good eye for finding bonsai nowadays, and he thought that this one would be worth a go. And of course, I just saw a pot on the ground that looked kind of silly. It had this swoop that it had grown up. So it was horizontal on the ground, but it still wanted to grow. All these new shoots righted themselves, and that curve happened as it grew. So it was probably, since it was in a 1-gallon pot, it was probably this big when it had fallen over, maybe a little bit bigger than that. And so underneath it was the landscape fabric, and it had a flat root mass about the depth of this pot, probably a little more shallow than that, that was completely underneath that landscape fabric. So it was much like collecting a yamadori from a rock crevice. Really great roots. It hadn't been anything other than just rainwater on it for however many years. But yeah, that's why it's in such a shallow pot. So it's got the look of a fallen over tree. I've seen this happen in the Pacific Northwest area with a similar tree to this one. This is actually arborvitae, which is related to our western red cedars that we have growing around here. And so when I've seen these fallen over in the forest, they do have the same thing happening where they have multiple smaller trees growing up. I don't always see them with this tall trunk at the end. It's usually a straight out trunk, and then as it goes, there's trees growing from it. So that's the look I'm going to go for on this. I haven't actually done this style before, but I've seen it enough where hopefully I can just do it by feel. And that is typically how I work on bonsai anyways. Let the tree do the talking, and I just kind of guide it. So what I'm probably going to be doing is using a little bit of wire, and as I'm going, I may decide if I'm going to be doing a lot of upward growth, which for this one, arborvitae tends to grow quite a bit upwards as it is. So I may be just wiring branches into position and probably doing a little trimming. I think I'm going to keep this fairly simple. It does have a lot of recovery to do, but it does have some new shoots from the new growth that it's had since I brought it home in about July. So I'm going to start by cleaning it up, and then we'll go from there. All right, this is at least cleaned up enough now where I can see what I'm doing. I have some branches that I have to decide if I'm going to gin or completely remove, such as this one. Looking at the tree, this looks like it's going to be a very short gin, or actually, you know what, there's not a lot of gin going on. I may completely remove that, but before I decide on that, I have to decide on these two toppers. One of the tops is actually much thinner than the other one. This main one is thicker, but it doesn't have as much branching coming off of it. This smaller one actually has most of the branches of the tree. This top one does have a few up a little bit higher, but they're both chopped at the same height just to get it out of where I had found it. So I need to decide which one of these I want a little higher. So this top one has a top branch that looks really good way up here. And the smaller one has one a similar height, but it also has branching all the way up. Even though this thicker one is the one that looks like the main part of the tree because it's thicker, the main part of the growth is on the thinner one. So I'm feeling like I should reduce this thicker one a little bit. Now I have to just decide how far to reduce it. I really only have 7 live branches on it compared to the other one, which has, I don't know, triple that. So I wouldn't really be losing that much. And these top 2 branches go directly into that other side. So I'm actually liking this position right here to reduce the top from. I have a good collection of 3 branches near the top of this, and then beyond that it's kind of empty. There's just the 2 main branches up there. So I am going to actually make this top no longer. I don't think I need that much of a curve off of it. So I'm going to be taking this thick section right here, and I'm going to be taking that down and whittling it down some. I think for now I'm just going to make a stub out of it, and then once it's dried out I'll do a little bit more refined carving on it. I might do just enough just to make it look somewhat decent, but really I'm going to focus more on the shaping of the tree this time, and I'll do maybe a little more carving another time. Incremental steps, that's what I'm going for. Alright, getting ready to chop it. Okay, now I got some gin up there. Now I got to figure out what to do with this branch right here. And first thing I'm going to do is shorten that. Don't really need all of it. And that may look kind of silly as a tall gin. I'm just going to rip it. Yeah, that's good enough. I didn't really need a branch there anyways. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start working on these lower branches and work my way up towards the top. And there's not going to be a whole lot going on these. Really all I have to do is just position them. I don't think I'm going to put a lot of downward growth because I'm imagining this is growing in a forest that it's fallen in. This is no longer a tall tree. This is a tree that used to be hundreds of feet tall and is now fallen down and is trying to find the light once more. As it's trying to find the light, the branches won't be drooping very much. They're actually going to all be going relatively upwards. So this is a different style of bonsai for sure. This is a fallen tree look. This is based off of just memories that I've had from walking through the forest. There's a lot that I trimmed off of it, and also some sections I left that I may wind up getting rid of in the future. These two lowest branches, for example, I'm not sure that they're really fitting with the tree the way I originally intended. But that's okay. They're going to grow for a while, and if they make a go at it, those may be a couple of separate trees on the side here, and this will still be the main tree. Very different forms these two trees have than this main section of tree here. The top is really sparse right now. Because I removed a couple of branches, it just looks sparse like that. So the top may come down a little bit at some point, but for right now I'm just leaving these here for growth. Where it tends to grow usually is out of these little Ys, where the branch unions are, is where a lot of growth is. In fact, at this branch union right here, there are 2 new growths, and I can trim it down there, but I want to make sure that it pushes more growth down before I go and do that. This arborvitae is a pretty weird tree to work with. It can be bent down, it's really flexible, but it wants to grow back up. No matter what you do to bend it down, this tree just wants to grow pretty upright. All of the new shoots, like this orange one, was a fairly new shoot, wanted to grow straight up. And then the foliage likes to grow out and into sprays. So it's a different one to work with, but once you figure it out, it's pretty fun. You can do a lot just with the trimming of it, and it's a very forgiving plant. So I do recommend using this, especially if it's a free plant like this that was very much like a Yamadori, except urban dory. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. It was a fun project. Not a very used tree and not a very used style. It's still got a long way to go, especially up at the top there, but I'm going to keep at it, and it's been a fun tree for me to work with throughout the years. I have 2 other ones that are also in a very different style. They really challenge you with your bonsai, these arborvitaes. And it's a tree that I do recommend you work on. It does take a little bit of ingenuity and a little creativity exercises to make it an interesting looking bonsai. But that challenge is what makes bonsai a lot of fun, at least for me. Thank you for watching.